Welcome viewers to another exciting edition of the AAU Talks. This is the AAU TV, and today I'm having with me in the studio two participants from the workshop on research, communication and commercialization. I'm joined by one participant from Zambia and another from Uganda. Would like to interact with them to sort of get an understanding of how the workshop is faring so far. We would also want to know why they even joined the workshop and what their expectations are and all of that. So gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mr. Damaseke Chibale. I'm from the University of Zambia in Zambia, and Manager Public Relations and also Communications Officer for the Center of Excellence of Infectious Diseases of Humans and Animals. This is a World Bank funded project, okay, and it's going to be purely in research and also part of academic, that is enrollment of students who will be carrying out research. And at the same time, it also involve capacity building, okay, for the staff that been seconded to the project. Okay. So it's a massive project for us in Zambia, and we indeed look forward to its implementation. Okay. And back to the University of Zambia, this is one of Zambia's biggest university, the first university ever formed in established in Zambia, okay, in 1966. So we're about 52 years old of experience in service and excellence, okay, and also in promoting higher education, okay, in Zambia. We
are very happy to host you. Looks like we would have a very rich discussion given your background.
Sure.
I'll give the chance to the next gentleman seated to also introduce himself.
Jimmy Spire Ssentongo,
okay,
from Uganda Martyrs University. It's a private university in Uganda, one of the oldest.
Okay.
And there I had research and publications under the School of Postgraduate Studies and Research. I'm also a columnist with a national paper called The Observer, okay, and an editorial cartoonist.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
nice
very
to be here.
Interesting. Okay, so let me come back to you. We want to find out of what benefits is this workshop being conducted by the AAU to your institution, the workshop on research, communication and commercialization?
I think it wouldn't have come at a better time like this.
Okay.
Like I told you that the University of Zambia has been in existence for over 52 years. And basically we've done quite a number of research and which have some impact both on national development and the socio-economic setup of our people in Zambia, as well as within the region, that the SADC region. And we're also looking at the aspect of continental impact. Okay. And being the member of AAU, we felt that this is the best because we saw huge volume of research. I think what we need now is communication, okay, of these research findings. And then besides that, as universities nowadays, we need to operate as a business. So we need to operate in the business sense of it. And so the commercialization part of it comes in. And so when you look at the workshop itself, it encompasses these key ingredients in higher education and indeed in promoting research. Because it will, when you're doing research, you need to look for funds, okay, and then do the finding and see how this finding can have impact or upgrade or affect business. It could be government, policy delivery, as well as how to uplift the living standards of our people in our various countries, and ultimately on the African continent level. Okay. We see what is it that we can do. For example, the new project that we have, the Africa Center of Excellence on infectious disease of humans and animals. These are very, very critical, especially at our time in Africa. If you look at most of the outbreaks that is there, the common one is Ebola. It's, okay, affecting and ravaging parts of Central Africa. Okay. And we need localized, domiciled research that will be able to understand the different circumstances and how the findings can actually help to prevent. Because if we cannot prevent, the cost is quite high. Okay. The cost of doing the mitigation and rectifying the situation is quite high. whereas the funds that are needed to carry out those research so that we can implement the findings is quite minimal in percentage. Okay. So we're looking...
briefly, I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Cut you short.
Thank you.
But I would like to get Dr. Ssentongo's opinion as well as to how beneficial you really think this workshop would be to your institution.
Yeah, I really think it's of so much benefit, mainly because it's quite clear that there is so much research that is being done in Africa. Of course, we know that not as much as we should or would have expected, but that even the little that is being done is not really visible. And there have been so many questions on the relevance of academics in Africa that somehow we seem to be detached from our realities and not really informing as much as we should, informing practice, informing policy. So I think a workshop of this kind that is meant to equip us with better skills of doing that is quite timely. Okay. Maybe I should say it's overdue.
Okay.
Yeah,
and so just to get an understanding of what currently happens in our university situation in terms of whether we really even communicate our research at all, and whether there are already some initiatives related to commercialization. We want to get an understanding of what the current situation is, and then we can sort of discuss how or where we should really be heading towards. So if I would take the comment from Dr. Ssentongo, and then I'll come to you.
Sure.
Among the initiatives that already exist, of course, there is the traditional one of publication, scholarly publication in journals, books, book chapters. But where the challenge is that at times you ask yourself, whom are we writing for? Who is really reading that? We know that it's already a challenge in most of our communities, reading itself. But on top of the fact that reading is a challenge, we also make it more complicated by communicating in a mode that is a bit exclusive with the jargon and all that. So that traditional mode is playing some part to a certain extent, but it's limited. There have been some efforts of scholars, of academics approaching the media, and sometimes some have gone an extra mile, becoming columnists and occasionally communicating their research. But I should say what is there is not yet to the level that it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me come to you. Where should African universities really be going in terms of how we communicate our research findings to industry, to governments? Do we even really have some linkages with these stakeholders?
I'll speak from the case of the University of Zambia, and I think it's not a unique case. It seems to be cutting across the universities in Africa, is that indeed we have a lot of this research, but we are not translating them into real product. For example, I will mention the issue of research uptake by the industry as well as government. And probably this is the reason why there's this outcry that what university academia are teaching is a theory and not the practical part of it. I think we need to strengthen the relationship between universities and industries. We should expect industries to come forward to universities and say, look, we have this product that we want to, to develop, or which we still have. How can we improve its efficiency? And how can we, if it's a product, how can we improve its shelf life in terms of marketing, aspect? So that the university academian researchers will sit down, look at the aspect of the product or service, and see how best they can improve it, so that there's a win-win situation between the university and the industry. And so I think that is one thing where we need to do that. And then besides also, we need to do research that will impact our society. We have a lot of challenges in our African society. The energy, we don't have, there are a lot of energy levels. We always have power outages. We have water challenges. Not all communities have clean water supply, and so on. The sanitation, the solid waste management are everywhere. can we do research to come up with technologies that will be able to address these challenges and ultimately improve the quality of living for our African people.
Okay. All right, viewers, for those who just joined, this is the AAU Talks, and we are live on the AAU TV, transmitting via Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. With me in the studio is Mr. Chibale and Dr. Ssentongo. They are participants of the current Research, Communication and Commercialization workshop being undertaken by AAU. And we are discussing how research is being communicated by academics to industry and to other stakeholders. We want to know what the current situation is and where we should be going. So just before the break, that is what we were discussing. Now let me come to you, Dr. Ssentongo. I think we learned, I think this question will be more appropriate for you. We learned quite a lot about working with media. I think the discussion today has been on research communication. In your opinion, are the media we have in Africa, have they really been interested in publishing or bringing out the various research being undertaken by academics?
I think they have been.
Have they been supportive?
Yeah, I think what we need is to establish this relationship.
Okay.
In this circle of research, communication and commercialization, we need to realize that the media is very important.
Okay.
First, I think I will speak from the academic perspective.
Okay.
How do they view the media? And then the media also look from their position at the academic world, and they'll think that maybe they are miles apart. The academics, they look like aloof with all the knowledge that they have. The media, they also look like maybe the information which is there will be very difficult to communicate. My view is that both these two companies to come together, they need to work. Because if we are going to receive or to achieve effective research communication, then we need to work together as partners. The media are ready to communicate. All that we need to give them is information that will be easily be used by the media. So in that case, we need to use, to change the research jargon that we use to a language that the media will use for the purpose of our African people. We should keep in mind that the bigger percentage of our population, these are average educated. And so the information should be reduced to that level so that they're able to understand what these research findings are all about and how it affects them and how they can use the same information to improve their lot. Okay.
So let's look at the issue of online visibility for academics. I think it's out there, we think that academics are usually not visible or they shy away from a lot of these online platforms because they are so much stuck into their research work. They are not really interested in some of all of this. Is that really the situation? Or do we think academics on the continent are doing enough in terms of trying to project themselves and trying to project the kind of work that they do so that we know them as experts? Once I go to Google and I search, I would see the person and his works and all of that. Do we find that happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't really generalize in answering that question.
Okay.
I know there are those who are trying, there are those who are not, there are those who are stuck to the traditional ways, who think that social media or media in general, other ways of online presence, something for the youth. Well, the conservatism is felt in a certain category of the academics, but there are also those who are working really hard, who are quite innovative or who are adapting new technologies, new media. So I would say it's in all directions, although maybe generally we would say that it appears those who are trying are still a few. Yeah, so it should have been much better than it is.
Okay.
Of course, there is also this reluctance to use social media. We have our fears that social media seems to be about unserious stuff, and there are all sorts of people, those who are not serious, those who are not interested in what we are doing. But social media is more of, like someone says, that the usefulness of a gun depends on how you use it. So social media is open to all sorts of uses. I think if we can adapt it in ways that are in line with what we want, in line with what we think needs to be communicated, it can be quite useful. And I know some academics who are doing that quite very well.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a special proverb from Uganda or Zambia?
No, actually, it's a Western proverb, West in terms of the North. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's still early days yet. This is only day one of the 3-day workshop. But I would like to ask you whether you think you've learned quite some good tips from this workshop, whether you think there's anything you've learned that you would take it back home and implement in the university, and as to whether you would want to recommend it to somebody to participate in the next ones.
Yeah, I think the very day has been very impressive. Okay. And it is an appetizer, I think, for the next 2 days. Okay. Coming. There are quite a lot of things that we've learned. I've come to appreciate that indeed research communication is very, very important. Sure. And we need to take it serious as universities if we have to be there and break even. Okay. And I think it's something that we will share with senior management at the University of Zambia. Okay. And see how best we can localize some of the strategies and methods that we've learned. Or now we can use social media, we can use the traditional media that we have, the online publications that are available, and see how best we can do that with a view that we also continue to dialogue with the industry, government, and the funders of research. And we also we'll also focus on some of the high impact research areas that once you do the finding and implement will make significant changes in the lives of the people in our countries and eventually on our continent.
Okay. Dr. Ssentongo, is this a workshop you would really want to recommend to other people, to other researchers to participate?
Yeah, from the impression of the first day, okay. Yes. My academic background is in philosophy. Okay. And in philosophy, we believe that as long as something prompts many questions in your mind, it means learning is taking place. So most of today it has been questions running in my mind about this and that, what I felt was not important, that now seems to be having another dimension to it. So I think that means there is a lot to learn. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us in the studio. All right, viewers, this has been another wonderful edition of the AAU Talks. And with me in the studio has been Dr. Ssentongo and Mr. Chibale. And they are participants of the current workshop on research communication and commercialization being organized by the Association of African Universities. Do stay tuned for the rest of our interesting programs. My name is Felicial Kuagbedzi. Thank you.